Hello, coin droppers, and welcome back to another episode of the Coin Drop Podcast. Joining me as usual, not always, because sometimes not always, is Tim. Tim, been a week. How you been, man?
Yeah, it's been a week. Is honestly really wasn't anything special. There was some stuff that happened in the industry and outside, and we're here to talk about it.
We sure are. We sure are. So this week is going to be a bit different of an episode. Just want to preface that up front here. We're only going to be talking about one topic. And for those of you joining us on Twitch or watching this on YouTube, if you haven't figured it out already, we're talking about the weirdness that is the day before. This is going to be basically the entire podcast because there's a lot to talk about here, a lot to cover for those of you who haven't followed this game at all, have only just heard about it. And for those of you like myself who may have forgotten some stuff along the insanely long journey that this game has had through a lot of weird coverage. I mean, not like it hasn't been a long journey, I guess, per se. I see Tim like grinded his gears there, but
Couple years.
a weird development path, I guess, is the best way to say that.
More accurate.
If I sound weird, if I cough, if I clear my throat, I do apologize. I am a bit under the weather. It's that time of the year. Been not feeling so great the last couple of days, so please bear with me on that front.
Why don't you wear a mask then, man? Jeez.
Got to keep you protected from that digital COVID, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So, Tim, let's start off with just like off the top. I sent you an article from IGN. They had a very well for you guys listening. They have a great article on there that kind of documents the entire saga of this game that I just kind of read over briefly to refresh my mind. Other than like what you read, Tim, was there anything that you recalled? Like, let's go back to 2021. Right, let's go back to the premiere of this game. When the day before showed its first trailer, what were your initial thoughts? Because that was a really good teaser, I guess you could say.
Yeah, so I mean, it was in 2021, and it was actually a pretty long trailer, if I remember correctly. It was like five to 10 minutes long.
Yeah, I've actually got it up currently. It's a decent length. I think the total runtime was about 11 or so minutes.
Okay, so yeah, and it showed a good amount of gameplay in a large swath of the city, and it basically was what the Division was originally shown to be, super interactive city. No matter what you're doing, you can interact with cars, you can shoot things if you're in the middle of a shop or whatever. All of the items around on the shelves and things like that would interact to gunfire or grenades or whatever it was. It looked freaking gorgeous. And while it did almost look kind of like a copy of the Division, it added zombies and stuff into it, and it was gorgeous too. It was a big open world game, which we're 2 years away now, and
yeah,
we'll get to it. But there's reason to be disappointed with that at this point. But it was something to be like really excited about because it was like, oh wow, this looks cool. Show me more, please.
Yeah, so Days Gone, God damn it, I always do that. The day before that first trailer dropped, and it almost overnight shot to the top of Steam's most wishlist games. It was a hugely impressive trailer from a little-known publisher, little-known developer, and it just caught it checked all the boxes, right? So time goes on, and they make all these promises, as most devs do. That's not unique. We hear it all the time, and especially this year, we've seen tons of delays, we've seen tons of pushbacks, we've seen tons of broken promises, like The Last of Us coming to PC and not being broken. But that's besides the point, right? So this is now this game's fourth delay we're on. For those of you following at home, the game was initially set to release when was it?
June 21st.
Right. Yes, June 21st, 2022. It came and went, and it got pushed back to March 1st of 2023.
I think it was actually delayed like less than a week before.
Yeah, so they had gone to some event, I can't remember which, where they announced that they were also working on a game called Prop Night, which is like Prop Hunt meets Dead by Daylight. Never played it, but that game released, and it seemed like they were super focused on that. So that game came out, and then there was like kind of radio silence for a while on I thought you all did these on Sundays. Nope, we're Saturday crew. Thank you for joining us, my friend. They kind of went radio silence on it after that. They kind of said like, hey, it's going to be delayed. We need more time to work on it. I think the exact, stand by 1 second, my daughter just came here. You hurt your toe, baby?
I believe when it was originally delayed, that they gave a reason.
I'm sorry. I'll do your kisses.
It wasn't the best of reasons, but it was still one of those that everyone was willing to accept it. A lot of games delayed for long, right? So, and basically, they needed additional time. Actually, didn't they give some sort of reason for it?
Yeah.
They changed over to Unreal Engine 5.
I was just about to read that quote when Morrigan came up. So the quote that they gave us, the reason they pushed it back, and this is one thing. This is my first big talking point. Feeling and understanding the great responsibility that we face with enormous gratitude in our heart, we're pleased to announce the day before we're switching to the new Unreal Engine 5 technology. So that's a direct quote. The transition to a more advanced and adapted open worlds engine, I don't know why that's open worlds, but it's open worlds engine, will make the game.
Sure, their English isn't their first.
I believe they're Korean. So yeah,
it kind of comes off a little bit here and there.
Yeah. Make the gameplay of the day before even more fantastic. In this regard, we inform you that the new release date of the game will be March 1st, 2023. So this is my first big talking point. They're not the first game to say, hey, you know what? Unreal Engine 5 is out. This stuff's really cool. There's a lot of potential with Unreal 5. It can increase workflow. It can make the game look better, make development go smoother. Obviously, there's going to be a jumpstart time. We talked about this with Ashes of Creation. They kind of went through the same hurdle, right? So this is not an uncommon thing to say. However, I have a lot of questions about this because what they came out with when we finally got new in-game footage was not at all even close to on par with what their initial trailer in 2021 was, which was supposedly, assumedly, running on Unreal Engine 4. So how did they go to a more advanced engine and take a step backwards on their graphic fidelity to the point where it almost looks like Fortnite more than The Division?
I would say that's a bit of a stretch personally, but you know what? The interesting thing I find about it too is actually I said the same thing about Ashes of Creation. When they swapped over to that new engine, it gave them a pretty heavy graphics drop, which I'm hoping they'll rectify, and I sort of expect them to, but that's a different game. Anyways, this game, honestly, I mean, I hate to say it, but honestly, I don't think so. Like The Division, when it was originally announced, they actually pared back the graphics because when they first showed it off, it was a what's the word, like a target. Hey, this is what we want to do, and this is what we're going to put out. And they realized shortly after that that they weren't going to be able to make the game work on modern hardware and look as beautiful. Fuck is this game called again?
The days last before us.
Yes.
I do the same thing, dude. I do the same fucking thing. The day before, yeah.
I know. The day before, I have a feeling that theirs wasn't. It wasn't on purpose, but they definitely overshot what they were trying to go for, and God only knows how they managed to do it in such a beautiful manner with the initial trailers. But more or less, they did the same thing. They just way overshot what they were capable of doing, and they couldn't get their engine to run while looking as good as it was. So they pared back the graphics. I mean, we could jump all the way to the most recent trailer from last week.
Yeah.
It looks quite poor. Graphically, anyways.
It definitely looks way closer. I'll give them some credit because the latest trailer looks closer to the first Division than the last trailer we got of like the 10 minutes of gameplay. Like the reason I say it looked like Fortnite is gameplay. Dude, oh my god. That was the most empty world I've seen since the DayZ mod for Armor. Like that awful. But the reason I said it looked like Fortnite is every time I look at that footage that they showed us before the trailer that dropped earlier this week, the camera angle and the movement, seriously, dude, it just looks ripped straight out of Fortnite to me. Like the movement, the camera is so close. It's not like, what we saw before where you saw, 3/4 of your guy on screen. Now it's like ass level and up because the camera's so tight to the person. It looked really Fortnite-y to me. The skins looked really plasticky on the models. It was definitely a big hit. And you know what? You're right. Ashes of Creation, their latest trailer looked a lot better than when they initially switched to Unreal Engine 5. So there could be an optimization thing there too.
I think with Ashes of Creation, it was more of they're paring back and they're trying to get the quality of the game to be fun and good to play, and then they'll toss graphics on top of it. This game, I just don't think they know what they're doing.
I don't think they're capable of it.
Yeah, that too.
I think there's a lot of talk out there, and we'll get to some of why those theories exist. But I think one Redditor a while ago hit it on the head, and I think it's more or less F-fantastic. And I don't care if they call themselves fantastic. There's no A. It's F-fantastic. So that's what I'm going to call them. It's fine. F-fantastic. I think they had an ambition, and I can't fault them for that, right? Like, we all have dreams, we all have ambitions, but I think they bit off so much so quick. They're like, holy shit, actually this is way more work than we're capable of. And that's reality of making a AAA game.
So I think if you look at all of their communication, they've always been like super confident in their product.
Yeah.
And they're always been like, it's going to be great, you're going to love it once it's successful, blah, blah, blah. These whole thing, these essentially PR statements. I do believe that they believe that they have a good idea and a good wish for the product. I'm trying to remember the point I'm trying to get at here. Basically, they're not necessarily doing it on purpose, and it's not that they're not.
It's not malicious. It's not malicious.
It's not. Yeah, it's not malicious, but ultimately, you can see behind their words is clearly not actual confidence, because now they've already pared it all the way back to there's going to be they're going to release an early access, only going to release on Steam, and this is the very first time we've ever had any indication whatsoever that the console versions aren't going to hold up. And so now it's going to be an early access, and we know early access for most games is minimum of like a year. Some of them are like 8 years. If you look at, say, Fortnite is a perfect example.
7 Days to Die, I believe, is still quote unquote in alpha. It's been out since the PS4 has been a thing. So yeah.
So it for all we know, it's only going to last 4 months, and then they're going to launch it. But that's not going to. I highly doubt that's going to happen, given the history of this game. But I mean, I want the game to be good. After those first initial trailers, it looked so good. I just don't have confidence anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand that sentiment. I don't have a lot of confidence in them either. I have a lot of hope that they're able to pull it off, but I don't believe they are actually capable of. It's an interesting game, and the cracks started to show. I think, was it the second trailer? Yeah, it was the gameplay trailer. It was the 10-minute one is where people started to kind of put it together, right? So it was the last trailer, not the one that just came out last week, but the one previous, where they did those first successive shots of like the intro, like through the grate. Yeah, so that's where things started to get really interesting. Is already, like, when this game came on the scene, everybody's like, oh, it looks like The Division, that's cool, like we understand that this is a game that's going to be third-person tactical shooter, blah 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 blah. They're adding some survival elements, so it very quickly distinguished itself. I wouldn't insult it to the point of saying like, oh, it's a Division clone, but in that Division vein, right? Like, when you
at least had some inspiration from it.
Right, just like, Jedi Survivor took inspiration from Dark Souls. Like, Souls-like is an idea. It's not an insult. It's just a way you're structuring your game. And the day before looked like it was structuring that way. Now, then we started seeing really random key art stuff coming out that was... I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, right? So, like, a lot of people are going to say, like, it's a straight rip-off. It's a rip from this. It's a rip from that. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, there's two sides here, right? There's two possibilities. So we saw a lot of art that looked like, oh, this scene looks like it's taken straight out of Resident Evil with some minor changes from like the Resident Evil 2 remake. Oh, this key art looks like shot for shot exactly the way Division 2 was. Oh, this scene looks like it's ripped off of some mountain off-roading game because it was like a bunch of trucks. Like, very composition-wise, these key arts were the same thing, right?
So when they actually delayed the game early this year, Someone had found a trailer, not a trailer, but a breakdown video that someone did. Some guy did some sort of tech breakdown video, and in short, he was able to take. There was that first 10-minute quote gameplay trailer that basically this guy was able to actually find the assets, the basic assets you can get via the engines.
Yeah.
He was like, well, look at this muzzle flash. Not only is it a flat 2D texture, it also doesn't provide any light on the gun itself or on anything else around it. Look at this texture. It comes straight up, from their store, so on and so forth, which is what you're saying. Basically, they were using like super basic generic textures or assets that you could get for free via their store rather than, say, buying new ones or uploading your own or making it from scratch or whatever it may be. So it started to get really noticeable really quickly, so much so that actually people were even saying that it was just a fake scam because the developer themselves, not only were they pushing that first game, but they were actually pushing some sort of communication app like Discord or whatever that they were using in studio. And the apps, or not the apps, but the trailers they released would then start talking about this app and be like, you can get this app now. And it was like some really weird, almost marketing ploys. People actually thought the game was fake for that purpose.
There was other things too. That was definitely one of them. The other one was how it was clearly riffing off of successful titles, more or less successful, right? Now, Strix in the chat says that your audio sounds a little muffled, Tim. I don't know if maybe you can move the mic a little bit more to the middle of your face or down in front of you, something like that. I don't know.
Hear me now.
You can eat the mic too, I guess. We can roll with that. I'm sure the audio listeners are going to love that. So yeah, it was people started to see these comparisons, and you can't blame them, right? Like a lot of it became very clear that they were either riffing or paying homage, right? So those are two very different intents in my mind. So the only reason I don't think it's the latter, tell him to shove it down his vocal cords. Those are two different. Like, Tim, please save it for OnlyFans.
Okay.
All right, back on topic. So those are two different intents, right? The issue I have is when the Redditor put the shot for shot out, when he took like I think it was Call of Duty Cold War. It's called Call of Duty Ghost Cold War 2 or something. I don't fucking know what the hell. It was basically a shot for shot from that game taken and remade with the day before. Like literally, there's no arguing it. It's right there. And when Fantastic got a hold of it, they straight up tried to say disinformation on the guy.
Yeah,
that's where I'm like,
they're calling their fan base liars.
Yeah,
saying that word.
I'm like, that's okay. So you're caught. Right? You're caught. You're the best. Like, and this is how you know it's a small studio, I guess, because bigger studios would have a PR department. They say multiple times they don't have PR, they don't have marketing. Everything goes into the game, which if that is true, good. That's where the money should be going. It shouldn't be going to marketing. It shouldn't be going to PR. However, maybe step back when you get comments like that and go, okay, they caught on. How do we work this backwards? Right? The reason
for a small studio like them, it's probably best to just be silent.
Yes.
Instead of comment.
And they learned that the hard way, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The only reason I bring this up is recently, I actually shared this article to you, Tim. It was recently announced that Deadpool 3, I know this sounds unrelated, but bear with me, recently announced that Deadpool 3 will have a key scene in it that is shot for shot, beat for beat, taken from Star Wars Return of the Jedi, Episode 6. Like they straight up said that it's paying to homage to that movie, and they're basically reshooting it exactly the way that was, just with Deadpool, right? Yeah. So if Fantastic would have just been like, look, man, we're paying homage. Like, these games are great. We're trying to tap into that subliminal love you have for these games to capitalize on it. Maybe not like be that clear with it, because that's what they're doing. But like, we're just trying to pay homage to like these great games. We know they're good games. We're trying to capitalize on what they've done well. I really think that had they done that, they would have avoided a lot more of the backlash and hate and speculation that they've gotten as a result of just saying like, oh, anybody can go online and say anything. Well, dude, it's very clear, right? Like that's not a good response for that.
Yeah. They definitely shot themselves in the foot. I think that's where the language barrier comes in. I almost feel like they're using ChatGPT to translate for them, and like you said, that they have said they don't have a PR studio,
Right.
and clearly that particular person isn't the best person to be their communicator.
Yeah.
He should for sure not just write it out and send it. He should potentially have a few people look at what he's responding to and be like, maybe you should reword that, or just not send it at all.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think in many cases it's easier. I think Hello Games, the guys behind No Man's Sky, probably did it best when they launched their product and it was pretty much ass in all the ways. They just stopped talking. They disappeared for 18 months or something along those lines, a really long time, and everyone thought they just took the money and ran.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, there's this major patch came out that changed so much, and then it's just been that over and over and over again, and now we know we can trust him. And he's actually broken out of his shell since then. He talks on Twitter more cryptically than anything, but he does talk more often. So I think for a smaller studio, that's probably the better option, and it probably would have bit them in the ass less.
I agree. I think, and part of this too, again, we're talking about a dev company that's from Korea. So I believe they're from Korea. I could be wrong, but I was pretty sure Fantastic was based in Korea. Somebody can maybe Google that, or Tim if you have time. But we're talking about, I'm fairly positive they definitely aren't based in the U.S. Regardless of where they are, American culture when it comes to business is vastly different than the entire rest of the world. The entire rest of the world handles business very differently. We are not the best. We're not the best at a lot of things. And
yeah,
I think we expect everybody to be responsive to everything all the time. And that's just not the route they should have gone. And they were trying to do that because they're appealing to an American audience.
Yeah, so their headquarters is in Singapore, but they were founded in 2015 in Yakutsk, Russia.
Okay.
So I don't know.
More
It's
weirdness.
a strange place to have a headquarters.
More
yeah.
weirdness.
So I mean, talking about weirdness, one of the biggest controversies for them is that it actually turned out that they use a lot of volunteers to help them develop this game. And when that actually came out, someone had broken that news. It leaked. I can't figure it. I don't remember exactly how it happened. But when that information came out, they tried to hide it by saying, "Oh, all of our people are volunteers.
Yeah,
we've got part-time volunteers, and full-time volunteers." And they basically stated that their full-time volunteers are paid, and they're basically your typical paid employees, and the part-time ones are paid with like codes and food and things like that. And I just don't know how you develop a AAA title with volunteer work, which I mean, I guess I can understand apprenticeships and things of that sort.
So
yeah,
I have thoughts on that. I think again this goes back to a language barrier. So I think, and again, I think that's the biggest issue is we're Americans trying to understand a different culture's way of talking and speaking and reacting. We're doing translations. I think what they were trying to say, and again, I try to give devs the benefit of the doubt. These guys haven't presented a product yet that has been broken yet. They've broken a lot of promises. They've backpedaled on a lot of stuff, and we'll get to some of that, but they haven't presented a product yet. So I can't claim that the game is garbage. I can't claim the game doesn't exist. I can't claim it's a scam. I can't claim it's spyware. It doesn't exist yet. We don't know that. That's all speculation. What I can say is that devs are founded by people who want to make and play video games. That's what they do. I don't think that this studio is any different, though it might feel that way because of the stuff we've seen. So giving them the benefit of the doubt, the volunteer thing, I think that's a bit of a language barrier. I think the way they're looking at it is everybody that's on the team volunteered to be on the team. That's your paid workforce, right? Like, like they probably didn't recruit because they're a small dev, right? They have a team for Prop Night, which I don't know if they're still supporting or not, but they had that team. Like that was a game that they published alongside of this. So at that time, you have to imagine, at the very least, Fantastic has two teams. They have Prop Night, and they have the day before. So you got to assume that they asked for volunteers to work on this project from that project or other projects to work on this project. As for the unpaid volunteers, is that really, and I don't know because I'm not one of them, is that really any different than Ashes of Creation saying, hey, pay us $300 and you can help develop our game by playing it and giving us feedback?
Which is your pretty typical
volunteer developer, right? So
yeah.
Now it's not that clear cut with the day before. We don't know what the duties of these volunteers are. We don't know what the working conditions of them are. We don't know what they're actually contributing. It could be a bunch of guys sitting in a room going like, oh, this would be a cool thing to add. This would, or it could be hardcore coders. You know, it could be hardcore programmers. We don't know what that looks like. I haven't heard of anybody that's actually a volunteer dev for this, paid or otherwise. But like that's what we know to be true, is that's a thing. So just giving them a little bit of benefit of the doubt, and raising some questions as to what the presumed meaning of that is. I think there's a little bit of possibility that we have some bad interpretations of what that means.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear they at least know how to develop a video game, right? I mean, you can look at Prop Night, and while the reviews for all time is sitting at a 67, therefore mixed, and that's almost 15,000 reviews. The more recent ones have been positive, even though that's at 70%. When you look at the quality of the game itself, if you look at the trailers or whatever, and or gameplay, like it actually looks like a nice, decent. I can't tell if it's a 4v1 type game or it's like essentially an arena shooter. It's hard to tell, but in any case, like they've got nice physics, everything. You know, the textures look nice. The gameplay actually looks like it might be a little bit fun. It's only a $10 game, so it's not really all that expensive. In any case, if you bring this back to the day before is more of a realistic, physics-based, you know, as more seamless open world game than say Prop Night. But it shouldn't be undoable for them. You know, I mean, look at Guerrilla Games. They went from first-person shooters to big open world third-person action games.
From Jack and Daxter to The Last of Us. Well, I guess to Uncharted to The Last of Us, but
it's totally possible. And even if they are massively different genres or even massively different scales, so like you said, there really is no judgment to be had on this game yet, simply because it's not released.
Right.
The only real potential problem I have is that they priced the early access so high. They priced it at $40. The main game is, once it comes out, it'll be $50. But
no, actually, I think. Hang on, stand by, because I thought it was 30 early access and 40 on release.
Now it's 40 and 50. Sadly.
Oh. Early access, yeah, 40 and 50. You're right. Yeah, that does seem high.
And that's it does seem high, especially when you consider the amount of letdowns for graphical drawbacks, not drawbacks, but downgrades that we've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, you can even look at the pictures on Steam that was just reinstated recently.
Yeah.
You can see some of the pictures where some of the initial from the initial trailer. You can see some of the pictures of that, and then you can see some of the pictures are from the more recent trailers, and you can see the graphical quality difference in those pictures.
Yeah.
So it's like, which game is this? Is it the second picture or the third picture, or is it the first and fourth pictures, which you can see that just look at the dude's thumb in the fourth picture on Steam, and it looks like it belongs on, say, early PS4 maybe.
Yeah.
And that's totally the opposite of what we saw with that first trailer. And I don't know, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Something I'll have to look into. It really just depends on how it turns out. Maybe it's going to be great. Who knows? It releases in a month.
I don't know that it's going to be great. I think it might be good. I don't have enough faith in this game that it's going to be great, but I think we should talk about the Steam page particularly, so I don't know how many of our listeners know. The day before it was pulled from Steam in, was it 2022 or 2023? I think it was
early this year.
Yeah, earlier this year. It was pulled from Steam because of copyright claims from a calendar app.
That was just before the third release date.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yep.
They're like, oh, by the way, there's a copyright claim. We had no idea. We have to release the game 8 months from now.
Yeah. So the game was pulled from Steam, and it was announced that there was a copyright infringement with this calendar app called The Day Before, all one word. Fantastic was very confident they'd win the lawsuit, the copyright issue, because they're definitely two completely separate entities, which obviously they did win, and obviously they should have, because again, no one's going to confuse a fucking calendar app for a survival shooter. That's a stupid claim. I'm pretty sure the guy was just after money who did it in the first place, even though he said it under the guise of protecting his IP and his product. Well, I don't think people are going to Google The Day Before looking for this or looking for your app, see the other one and go, oh, this must be it. This looks like a calendar app.
Yeah.
It's so unrelated. It was ridiculous. But so that got pulled.
Which is why I believe that it ended up being totally fine.
Yeah.
Just a separate product. That's stupid.
Yeah. Which led us to our last delay, which was the third delay, citing the November 7th release date. It recently returned, dropped our new trailer, which is on screen currently for our Twitch and YouTube viewers. This is their latest trailer that came out. It doesn't look awful. It doesn't, but it doesn't look good. It looks like early Division, and I'm fine with that. This is honestly, here's the thing. This is the most honest trailer of the game yet. This looks like what we will expect to see, given the dev team, what their presumed capabilities are, the presumed size of them, the funding they have. Like, this seems the most reasonable thing we've seen. Ultimately, the biggest issue that I have with Fantastic is the ridiculous amount of broken promises. And that's not a good way to start a relationship off. So they're... let's see, I'm going to find it here, but they had a direct quote, and I want to read it directly, that talked about, here we go. This is a direct quote from Fantastic, and this is what really eats me. Quote, "We are pleased to announce that the game will officially release on November 10th, 2023 without any further delay. Period. Full stop. End of sentence." You guys have delayed this game 3 times prior to this. This is now the 4th delay. And granted, it's only a month, but now we're hearing 1, the console version isn't coming. 2, it's releasing in early access. And then to top that off, 3, the beta that they talked about that we would be able to play at the beginning of the year, that they would talk about closer to release, that's for volunteers only.
They're development volunteers.
Yes. Yeah. The people that volunteered. Yeah, not for us to volunteer, for the people that helped build the game. I'm sorry, you're releasing a beta to the people who have helped build the game to test the game that the people you had volunteered to build?
Yeah. It's a very strange backtrack, to be honest. I honestly can't make any sense of it.
Yeah.
Honestly, what I'm more almost perplexed by is they showed so much as far as what you expect the game to be. You know, it's a Division-style zombie shooter in an open world MMO setting. But this most recent trailer that they released last week, they throw so many other things at you. You know, you've got spa visits for some reason.
You got a gym.
Can work out in gyms. Yeah, you can work out in gyms, but it also has a survival building element where you get your own farm and you can customize your house and stuff. Like, what is this game trying to be now? Because it almost feels like they're trying to be more than what they originally planned in a way that's not going to be helpful to them to make the game worth playing. Unless they're just trying to add a little bit extra. Maybe they hired a couple other people to do, those side things, and they're just adding more variety. I don't know.
The biggest concern I had with it was the second to last trailer we had, the one that was going to say it was going to release on November, the gameplay from back then. The gameplay sucked. It was, I think they shot 3 zombies. They wandered around an entire empty suburban area, made some modifications to their AK-47, and that was pretty much the trailer. It looked more empty than pachinko if you drop late in a battle royale and in fucking god damn it, in PUBG. I don't know why that name slipped my mind, but it looked empty as hell. And I agree. There's some weird stuff that they dropped in this new trailer. It has me questioning a lot of things, wanting to know more. I want to know, why is there gyms? Is this just something to do as an activity to like be in a chat room and run on a treadmill or lift weights? Is there a goal there? Do we get buffs? Do we have actual stat blocks we can up by being in the gym? What's the point of the spa? Is it just, again, another chat room to sit and chat with other people? Like, what are the reasons for these things? Are they solely for immersion, quote unquote, or is there a purpose to do them for the game?
I want to get fat like the protagonist from GTA was 4. If I eat too much,
Yeah.
that's what I want.
Yeah.
If I can't do that and work out at the same time to get myself skinny every 5 minutes in the first game.
That was
Constantly running back and forth.
that was San Andreas. That was GTA 3 San Andreas. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you could go and get shit ton of burgers and get fat and then just sprint up and down the block and get skinny. It was great. But like, I want to know that there's a reason for it. And I'm here's the thing, right? So this is the first survival game that I can think of that says it's also an MMO. So I wonder if they're getting caught up on that MMO thing and going like, oh, what do MMOs have? Oh, well, they have these social areas and they have housing. Okay, so we've got to add those. Again, like, you got to assume that this game at this point is going to try and take the best hits from the best games, because that's what they've shown us so far, is that's what they're trying to do. So
like, if you think about it too, since you have your own house or your own farm or whatever, does that mean it's going to be a like horde mode style thing too? Every so often your house is going to be attacked and you have to defend it.
I hope not.
I mean, you look at the trailer when they're driving through all this mud, their car gets slowed down. Is it going to be some sort of like, if you're not careful, you'll get stuck in the mud and you'll be swarmed by zombies? Like, what are they planning to do with this game? Or are they just showing us these little things that really don't ultimately mean much? Or, you know, you're going to have your nice little oasis away from the zombies.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's there's the potential for them to bring these things together. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I fully do not expect this game to release on the 7th. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to say it right now. It's going to get a 5th delay. I don't trust it. However, here's the one thing that if these guys are fucking with us, they are playing a level of chess no one else is capable of following.
Oh, I know.
No one else is capable. If you go to Steam right now and you look up the day before, you can't pre-purchase it. So if this is a scam, and all they're going to do is grab your money and fucking run, why wouldn't they allow you to pre-purchase?
Yeah. So, I mean, that is the one thing they've done to sort of gain trust, is they're not asking for your money ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know.
That's so weird to me, because I'm sitting here going, okay, because I'm trying to give them like, right, like there's generally 2 options, sometimes 3, but like, okay, either they're trying to buy back their trust in their fan base by saying, okay, we're not going to pre-take money, but we know the game's going to be trash and we have to continue to act like it isn't trash, or they're so confident that the game's good, they're like, nah, we don't need them to give us their money. They will once the game drops. Because you gotta believe somebody out there is going to end up with a review code, right? Like, that's how this works. That's how the industry works. PR gives press review codes. They get early access. Most of the time, I would imagine this game's probably no different, but it might be solely because it's an MMO. Those servers might not be live. There's no single player element, blah, 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 blah. However, you better believe any streamer who has been following this game is probably going to be streaming it day one. And the second somebody finds out anything that this game is not what they said, it didn't deliver, that's going to blow up. So by not allowing pre-orders, if their game is trash, if they're blowing smoke up our ass, it's going to get found out real quick, and they just lost a shit ton of money. It's a really weird situation.
Like I said prior, they've always been very confident in their communication, and while they've been arrogant or stupid in their communication at times, they've always been like, "It's a great product. I promise you're gonna, you're gonna love it after a while. Trust me, it'll be worth it." So like, watching this gameplay, it doesn't look like it'd be a terrible game. It just depends on if there's enough meat there.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. It's interesting. I know personally, I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. If this drops on the 7th, I'm buying it day one. Because I want to know. I want answers. I want to see it for myself. I don't want to hear anybody else's opinions of it or thoughts on it. I want to get my hands on it and play it if it actually releases the 7th. I have zero faith that it actually will, but if it does, I want to see. I want to see what the product they put out is, because it's been a long development for like an indie studio.
Which honestly, it wouldn't have really necessarily felt long if they hadn't promised it to release like just over a year after the initial announcement and then delayed it several times.
Yeah.
If they had just been like, "Hey, we're making this game. It'll be ready when it's ready." You know what I mean? Like if they'd have done that, then no one would have cared. Like
Right.
None of this scrutiny would have jumped on it. At least most of it would, anyways. But we'll see. What I've been thinking. I've been watching this trailer, which I have seen before, but I'm. Digital Foundry, you got to mention them, right?
That's our hitch. You with Digital Foundry and me with Tenchu. Yeah. We're contractually obligated to mention them both.
I'm seeing some stuff that I'm really curious about. So the telltale signs of the game is using screen space reflection, which means that if it's on the screen, it'll reflect in puddles and mirrors and things like that. The telltale signs of that is in the edges of the screen. You'll see, like in puddles and things of that sort, you'll see that there's actually not reflecting at the very edges, and that's happening in this. And you can see the color shift in puddles and stuff. But there were other scenes when he was in the city, in the puddles on the ground. It was reflecting,
Yeah.
the buildings and lights and various other stuff. And so I was like, oh, the game has ray tracing in it. And then I started to see that. So maybe it's using a mix of the two.
So keep this in mind. I actually took all of the trailers out there and cut them together. So this is not one continuous trailer. This is all of them stitched together.
Yeah. I've noticed that.
But yeah, that one where he was in the city was, I think, the 2021 one, and this is the one that came out shortly after that. Yeah, this one came out shortly after that, or around the same time, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, still different trailers, so it's entirely possible this is off screen, but I don't know.
I mean, ray tracing, not even ray tracing, lighting in general makes a big difference.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does.
It can make games look so much better. And so I would love to see ray tracing added to it, but even if not, just the quality actually of the lighting does look pretty decent. It's not phenomenal, but it does look pretty decent in this game. So that's got something going for it.
I could have swore UE5 by default supports ray tracing.
Yeah, it's got Lumen built into it, but they don't have to use it. I believe there's actually a UE5 game that's come out that doesn't use Lumen.
That's weird.
Yeah, but it is their ray tracing built into their engine.
I thought so. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, that's ultimately it, guys. That's the legacy. There's more to it than that. Like I said, IGN has a great article on it. They have great coverage on the weird saga of the day before. But that's ultimately the story. That's where we're at. 3 years. Yeah. Days Gone. Days Gone the day before. What? Days Gone before us last. It's a weird development history with this game. At the end of the day, I will throw them $40, and if it goes in the can, hey, you got me. But I'm interested enough to see what it turns out to be.
Yeah, so ultimately, you've gotten our thoughts over it. There's really not much else to say. Really, what I'm interested in is for the people watching and the people that listen, give us your feedback, because typically we talk about a few different topics throughout the episode, and this time we stuck with one. Do you like that, or do you want us to go back to splitting it up, or maybe go to 2 topics instead of 3 or 4? Just give us some feedback. Let us know what we're doing and what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Tim. So thanks for plugging that. And I think to plug it, our Patreon this week. Go ahead, Tim.
I have one more thing.
One more thing.
I actually bought a bundle on Fanatical the other day, and I was given a code for what the hell is the game called? Call of War as Gunslinger, and I just beat that game a few months ago, and so I now have an extra code. If anyone wants it, just freaking ask. I'll give it to you.
Join the Discord.
Trying to give away games. It's actually really cool. It's a very well built.
Yeah, Call of War was great.
Shooter that. Well, this one particularly was very different from their previous games, and basically some dude's telling a story of his life, and like as you're playing the game, shit just changes. He'll be like, "Yeah, so I was walking down the forest. Wait, I wasn't in the forest. I was in a farm." And like the game world literally changes in front of you, and like houses will drop down, and like he'll change his story up halfway through in the missions, and like it's really cool how they managed to do it. And it's a really well put together game.
Nice. Join the Discord.
If you want to ask.
Join the Discord. Tonight, our Patreon topic, we're going to be talking about the new news of the first Diablo expansion and the announcement of a brand new class that has not been seen before in Diablo at all, in any versions of Diablo. So, what's that game again? Lethal asked what game that was. That was, yeah,
Call of Juarez, Gunslinger.
Gunslinger. There you go. Call of Juarez, Gunslinger. We're going to be talking Diablo 4. And yeah, join us over on Patreon. It's $3, guys. $3 a month helps us keep the lights on, helps us keep doing this, helps support a lot, and you get the show a day early and at least one extra topic a week. So thanks for listening, and tell your mom I said hi.
Have a good night.